Okay, we're going to call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Everybody have their package in front of them. Item 2 is the review of the minutes for the June 27th Committee of the Whole budget meeting, June 19th, June 15th, and June 14th. They were all budget meetings. Is there any questions, concerns, errors on those? It's been moved by Councillor Gayesh and seconded by Councillor Boucher to adopt the minutes as presented for June 27th, 19th, 15th, and 14th. On discussion? Questions have been called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carried. There's no items added to the agenda. Moving on to the main part, I guess, of our meeting, the budget deliberation. Jason coming up? Or?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, you and Jason have made me aware that you've had several meetings, quite a few meetings on the budget, and Jason has reminded us that the bills are supposed to be dated September 1st, so here we are. I guess perhaps the best thing would be to turn it over to him.
Good evening, everyone. I guess I won't take up too much time, but I guess I'll note that this is our fifth budget deliberation meeting. We, as staff, presented to Council a budget in the amount of total revenues and expenditures of $13,744,841. What staff are proposing to Council is a budget that is balanced. A budget that has no tax rate increase, residential, resource, or commercial. We've reduced overall revenues and expenditures by approximately $660,000, and that is in large part due to the fact that we will not, or we are proposing no transfer from an operating reserve to fund the deficit this year. We feel like we put a lot of work into the budget. We've debated it quite a bit at the 4 meetings. Councillors had some issues with the budget. So now we are just looking for further direction on a go-forward basis.
Mr. Gayesh.
Yeah, Mr. Warden, since first of all, I think I would like to commend the staff for the diligent work they have done on the budget, and for the patience they have shown. I mean, it's very unusual that you have 4 budget meetings and we're into the 5th. There are certain items in the budget that Council, I'm sure, that we can deal with when it comes in the fall. That a lot of things in the budget that I probably don't agree with. The grant situation, the way we approach a grant system and the way the area rates. But these are items that can be looked at deliberation in the fall when we meet as a council. So having said this, I would make a motion right now that we approve the budget with no tax increase, and I'll make that in the form of a motion.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded, I guess. On discussion.
Question.
Right now, I have a few things to ask. I think it's incumbent upon us to ask questions in regards to it.
Mr. Chairman, I hope you make this short, because don't forget, we had 4 budget meetings already. This is the 5th one.
Well,
if there are new questions you're going to ask, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But if they're the same question you asked for 4 budget meetings,
well,
it's not appropriate.
You have concerns, I think they should be brought up. This is the
If
place
you have
to bring them
concerns that weren't brought up before, yes.
up. No, you said you have concerns.
They'll be brought up in the fall. I want to approve the budget right now, and there are certain items we want to deal with in the budget. I'm sure that we as a council can deal with certain issues that are in the budget that we don't agree with, and that could be the grant system, the way it's established right now. It could also be the salary issue. It could also be the area rates that I was concerned about, and that's something that staff, we can direct staff to check these out. And when I talk about area rates, I'm talking about fire department rates, that we all agree that fire departments are very, very important to Richmond County. But I want to make sure that they're also accountable as we as councilors are supposed to be accountable. But as far as the budget, I think we dealt with this at large. We had 4 meetings, this is our 5th. And I don't feel like staying here till 11 o'clock again tonight to deal with budget.
Once we approve the budget, are the area rates set for the fire services? So there'll be no more discussion on that.
There'll be no more until the next, there's still, I got a 4-year term.
Yeah.
Next year is another term, right?
So that's what, I mean, to
So
go,
we'll deal with that when it comes to the next budget.
To
I
go
mean,
and
this is
say-
it. This is
no.
August.
but to go and say we're going to discuss it in September, it's done. When we approve this budget, it's finished. There's no more discussing it. So you do it here, or once it's passed, it's done.
For the next
Some of the
budget,
concerns I have are, in our 4th meeting, we asked that a few things get taken out, and I'm going to bring you to some pages. I think, Jason, there was $30,000 in some studies. That didn't get taken out. From what, page 15, I have a question there, but the $30,000, we asked that that get taken out of the budget, and it got moved, I believe, capital reserve. So if we're asking to have things done and they're just getting switched, I'm not in agreement with that, for sure. I'm definitely not in agreement with the grants, but, to me, if we're approving a budget with $400,000 of grants almost unaccounted for at this point, I believe that's wrong. It is wrong.
where's the 400,000?
There's $250,000 in the counselor's grants, and there's another $150,000 in unaccounted money.
Where's that? I've never seen that.
Well, then it needs to be discussed and looked at, as far as I'm concerned. And maybe Jason can,
With regard to the 30,000, Mr. Chair, was there a motion made or something? I'm looking through the,
well, it was, I'm not going to say there was a motion, but it came up. Jason, I think you remember, and I spoke to you earlier this week about it, or
Yeah,
because there was 2 spots you had put it. I guess some of the things, I'll bring you to page 3 of 20, and I'm looking at the old one. There's an amount there under other general sundry. It's in general government services. It moved from 154,000 to 197,000 between the 4th meeting and the July 4th
yes.
session.
And if you look at the handout that handed out prior to the meeting beginning, the list of grants, there was
okay.
the budget, the big document, and then there was a small document that I just handed out.
Listen, Jason, okay.
So if you look at the if you look at the 3rd page of that handout, under sundry, the budgeted amount is showing 197,000.
Yep.
And the list of grants that council had collectively had consensus on in that list are there, with a contingency or probable expenses of 27,000.
So probable is not accounted for yet.
Right, it's contingency. So the 197,000 was consensus from council, and that's why the amount was moved from 150 some to 190 some.
Okay. The 15,000 in the bottom of that page that came out of the government services,
Yeah,
that
I
was
don't,
for the pool and a study in the industrial park.
right, I don't recall 30,000, but yeah, that amount was 50,000.
That
And
was 50, so there's 15 there.
Yeah, so that 15,000 was
Yeah.
moved to capital out of revenue, which is,
Page 4,
yeah,
of 20.
page 4.
So that's where the 115,000 is. Now, the next thing, there was something for the arena study that we wanted that taken out.
I don't recall that saying to be taken out, so it's still there, but that.
Oh, no, it's still there, but we
It's-
wanted those 2 things taken out.
I only recall.
That's what I thought the discussion was on our 4th meeting.
I
and
only
they're still
recall the
there.
first 15, so in the budget that you have in front of you.
Okay, do you recall that it was to be taken out?
No, I recall that it was discussed. The one.
But you did take it out of one area and put it in another.
I did take it out for
Yeah.
the joint study that council had said that definitely they wouldn't support.
For the industrial park.
That's correct.
Okay, and I thought the arena was the same thing, that we wanted that out. But it really didn't come out, it just went somewhere else. So it's leaving the tax rate the same. So does anybody remember that arena discussion? And I might have put it,
You know, it's very tedious, but that's why you make motions and so on, and then you have a record.
The arena professional fees is showing 10,000, so that was not removed. I didn't have any notes to remove that amount.
Okay, was that for a study?
Yes, I believe that the former CAO wanted to do an assessment of the arena and what work needed to be done. So I think that's where that study or review, whatever you want to call it, was coming from.
Because I thought the comments that were made that evening is we have staff here that can do, there was a C.J. McClellan report done in 2007, and some of that work is not complete yet. So there's no need in spending another 10 or 15,000 on another study. I think, we have competent staff to get that work done, be able to read that report. So I wanted that out as well. And when I said out, I meant out, not be charging the taxpayer for that. So you say that's still there.
It's still there in form of 10,000, and when we removed the other amount, I think the former CAO had agreed that we wouldn't do that study jointly with Port Hawkesbury. So rather than showing a small surplus, staff thought that it would be appropriate to add that 15,000 to the capital from out of revenue
On page 4.
to continue to have the balanced budget with no tax increase.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that you have to spend the 15,000. It was just taken out because council had expressed that they didn't want to support that study.
So that capital from revenue, that's money that we can't use for operations.
That capital out of revenue is a capital account that you could do things that would come up throughout the year that would be neat, like capital asset purchases, smaller purchases that wouldn't be funded through gas tax
Operations.
or through government funding of some kind.
Okay.
So it's budgeted through the general tax rate. So from a staff perspective, what we had talked about was to try to even bump that number up even more. So because there were things on the docket that needed to be done, for example, work on the outside of this building and different capital items like that. So we found that we were only budgeting a smaller amount there, so we found that we wanted to work that number up. That's where that was coming from.
But that's going into our current capital reserve.
No, it's an amount budgeted, so there's 115,000 budgeted in that item. It's called capital out of revenue. So what that means is that the general tax rate is able to buy capital items that the county needs.
No, but if what we don't spend out of that is going where?
It would just contribute as part of your surplus. So if
Surplus,
you only
okay.
spent half of it and at the end of the year you had a surplus, well, what you didn't spend from there would show in your surplus.
Okay. Page 15 of 20, I have a question there. And it has to do with where the $6,500 figure is. Everybody have their sheets? And under economic development, that was at 0, and that got changed between the 4th and last meeting. That's up at 6,500, so I'm just wondering, and it's just there as economic development other, because I thought we were keeping that at 0. So does that have to do with salaries currently in economic development?
No, that was an amount, our contribution, was it 0 before?
It was 0 at the meeting before.
Yeah.
That's July 4th, so it would have been the June 29 meeting.
Yeah, so that was an amount that was our contribution towards the tall ships that hadn't been previously budgeted.
I thought tall ships, we were getting all provincial money. There was
We are getting provincial money, but there was a small portion that was budgeted out of our budget, or that was supposed to be budgeted out of our budget from the original budget, so that was added in.
So that means that we put some money into that,
Correct, yeah.
and that was promised through economic development from the year before?
No, well, it was.
Why didn't you pick that up before?
It was for the tall ships for this year. It was just a number that I had missed putting in. So there was a budget done for the actual tall ships event, and that was our contribution.
Okay,
So
for this year.
that's purely just that. There's nothing else in there.
Okay. Those are some of the questions I have on the budget. The next thing I want to go to, you gave us a new sheet today for grants.
Yep.
I can't say that I looked at that, but I see infrastructure. I'd seen it on the previous one. We have Rocky Bay Irish Club. Infrastructure budgeted, 10,000. So is that coming out of this year's $200,000? Because it seems there's questions as to whether or not they're getting that. So I'll be meeting with one of them early
Yeah.
next week.
Uh,
So,
The way this sheet is done up is that those two amounts, the Bearshwa Trail Association for 5,000 and the Rocky Bay Irish Club for 10,000, was a staff recommendation that it be sent for consideration to the infrastructure funds. It wasn't there's been no formal commitment of council through infrastructure, is that we wanted to refer those two items to infrastructure. And the councillors of that area, or all of you, could decide if you wanted to contribute or not.
so that's out of the $200,000. But if, the way we've structured the grants now, it seems I'm leaving with the impression, and I don't know if the rest of yous are, that it's no longer a 20% division, the 250,000. So is, what I wanted to do at the last meeting was reduce the tax rate by that 255,000. And you weren't here, James, but the four of us that were here, that's what I mentioned. Because that money right now is unaccounted for. You have this here as a recommendation, yes, but budgeted, no.
Correct.
But you have it under the 200,000 infrastructure
That's right.
fund. So the thing is, if council is not controlling those, and I mean if each individual councilor is not controlling them and we're putting them in the general pool, the staff will make recommendations. I'm not 100% for that, no disrespect. Either the councilors control it, that they have their percentage and they give it out like it was before, or we just get rid of it. That's my recommendation. And there's still another $120,000 to $150,000 that's unaccounted for in the whole budget. I can't say I have the exact number, but there's money that we have not accounted for yet, and it's, adding some of these probable expenses here, like the 27,000, just above that. That's money not accounted for yet.
Are you referring to the June 19th meeting?
June 4, in respect to the grants?
Well, to the grants, I think we.
No, I'm looking at what Jason provided us this evening.
No, but that's almost the same thing. This is
Yeah.
moved by Deputy Warden McLean
Mhm.
at the June 19th meeting. Seconded by Councillor Clay, that the committee recommend to council that all grant applications, infrastructure and activity be directed to the Department of Finance for vetting and review
Mhm.
before going to council for their recommendation.
And-
Motion carried.
And that is to do with the infrastructure and activity grants money, right?
Well,
So my thing
What
is,
grants are you talking about?
that's the money I'm talking about right there.
Yeah, this is the motion that we made.
Yeah, and what I'm saying, Councillor Gayesh, is I'm not in favor of that.
What you meant, the motion carried.
Mhm.
Favor was not, it was moved by council.
Yes?
I mean, that doesn't, I'm not shocked that you're, I agree
Yeah.
or not, but I think council, it says here, motion carried.
That's a committee of the whole meeting. That's not approved at a regular session. Was it approved July 4th?
But all councilors were present, including
Yeah.
the board, and they all agreed.
That wasn't passed. We didn't have a committee of the whole report July the 4th. Did we? That I remember.
Well, I don't know, if we're gonna make meetings, if we're gonna make motions at the committee of the whole, and then come to regular council and not even approve it, what's the sense of having a committee of the whole?
Well, my thought, I think our previous CAO wanted to get rid of committee of the wholes. Is that correct, Jason? And I don't like to do that because I think people need that second somber thought. Once you make the committee of the whole motion, you go away and you think about it. I don't have an issue with people voting opposite come another meeting. Sometimes you make rash decisions or quick decisions and you haven't had time to think.
Well, there's no rash or anything, and everybody, if I come to regular council and there's a motion committee of the whole, and if I disagree with that motion, then I have the right to say at regular council, listen, I changed my mind and I don't agree with this motion. But this wasn't the case. It was moved and approved and motion carried.
That's not a regular session, though.
It's a committee of the whole session.
Yeah.
goes to regular council.
Well, you just said you don't have an issue going to regular council
Well,
and changing your mind. So whether it was passed or not, because it just seemed grants, we were not, it was the biggest part of our discussion, where we're going with it.
That's what we made a motion.
Am I missing something? And probably I am. So you have a fund of, $200,000 for these district infrastructure grants, and that $200,000 is in the budget.
Correct.
Yeah.
And this 15,000, you're just pointing out that two projects are going forward out of that 200,000. So it has no impact on the budget whatsoever. Whether council chooses to approve those or not approve those, the 200,000 is still in, so there's no effect on the tax rate?
No, that won't affect it.
Okay, well,
My-
that's good.
My thought, I guess the concern I have is that money is there. It's unaccounted for right now,
The 200 grand?
the 200,000. Well, that 200, plus I think is there 50 in activity money, or? It's 255,000 in the council grants.
Correct. Infrastructure activity,
Yeah.
255.
Because I don't see is the activity hidden in another one here?
No, it's in the budget.
No, but I
Separated.
mean, is it here? The activity money, because we really haven't decided, and that's my problem. We haven't decided where what we're doing with the grants. The activity, $50,000 is not even here. It's in the budget, but it's not here in this list of grant money.
This was a list of organizations who had came forward to the municipality looking for money in the 17-18 budget.
Yeah.
So we as staff tried to come up with a solution for council to take these requests and place them in different areas of the budget where they could be funded. We as staff found a way to fund all the requests with the intention that we would review the grant system in the fall and set criteria, and that finance staff would vet the applications and come back to council with a recommendation. Those two grants were two grants that we did not fit in the budget, that we recommended they go through the infrastructure grant process. The 4 grants below are grants that staff were recommending that not be approved. So those are also not in the budget. We just weren't recommending that any grants be placed in the activity funds, but that 55,000 is still there, and the activity request will still come in and go through the normal procedure. So that's why it's not on this list.
Through counselors?
Through counselors, providing that the funds stay in the proposed budget,
Oh, yeah.
which they currently are today in this draft. It's up to council if they want to completely remove those funds.
And where would we do that? Right here, right? If we're gonna remove them. We wouldn't wait till September, because if we're budgeting it and making the taxpayers pay the rate, it's gonna show up as a surplus next year. And then we can pat ourselves in the back and say, we got a surplus, but we really overcharge people.
Yeah,
And
but
that's the concern that I have with this money. If it's gonna sit there and go through staff and council's gonna say yes or no, we could potentially have quite a bit of money extra. And we do have quite some money sitting in the infrastructure funds that councilors carry from year to year. But if it's now in finance's hands, it's gonna be carried as a surplus for the municipal budget, not in council infrastructure funds.
Well, the same requests, what's happening would still be the same in the sense that organizations would come to the county for money for infrastructure-related projects. So it's not saying that the 200,000 that's currently budgeted would not be used.
No,
It's-
I understand that.
The only recommendation from staff was that I think all of council agreed that that we don't have a good handle on our grant system, that we need to put the checks and balances in place to ensure that organizations aren't tapping into different areas of funds within the municipality. This gives us straight streamline, everything comes to finance, we properly vet it, we check that the organization is legit, that their financial statements have been provided, that they need the money based on, we do an assessment that they need the money, and then we come forward with a report from the Department of Finance to council saying, we recommend that you approve this grant. It still becomes council's choice whether they want to approve that grant or not.
But most of those criteria were in the previous system as well, other than
There-
the recommendation.
There was some criteria,
Yeah.
but there wasn't really a good assessment done based on need, based on the financials, based on if the organization had reserves or had cash in their account. And then the other big area was that organizations were applying through infrastructure, through activity, through recreation, through tourism. They were tapping into various different
Yeah, but the
pools
reason
of
they were
money.
doing that, and the recommendation I made was we, at the beginning of the budget year, decide who's getting money, done. Every councillor has that list. Then we decide to keep the infrastructure activity funds, and councillors can look at their list and say, you receive money. The problem before was staff had control of a couple of $100,000 that they were giving out in recreation and in economic development, and we were unaware of that. So that's where the problems were. I mean, it's not staff's fault, it's not council's fault, it's collectively our own fault for not being, the key word I continue to hear is accountable. But are we being accountable by charging the taxpayers another $300,000 or $400,000 and then deciding who we're giving the grants to? Because, I mean, I was at a meeting last night with the Richmond County Literacy Network, and I mean, it was 4 hours of anger, you know, that they're not being treated fairly. And this grant system, like I told them, I think we probably need to get rid of it. Decide, the hospitals, I'm 100%. We never gave before to many of them, and I'm 100% for that. But we need to sit down and decide who we're giving money to. You know, we give 330 to 315 tax exemptions. People, organizations need to know that's money we're giving them. You know, either we charge you or charge you and give it back, or we don't charge you. So that's money given. Some of my issues are this money is sitting here, and I worry it's going to become another shit show with council. We have many other things to deal with. Do we want to be dealing with where are these grants going, what areas, who's getting them? If it's not in council's hands, I think we need to just get rid of it, and it's done. And I mean council's hands, that each councillor has a percentage. They can give it in their district. And it's not that I'm wanting to say we'll divide the districts. They should be for all of Richmond, for sure, and that's what we should do. And even in the past, councillors have shared their funds with other districts and had multi-district, you know, distribution of those funds. So I'm not against that. I'm against the way we're going now, that there's going to be a need. Could one organization come in and take $150,000? You only need 3 votes. That's all you need. And then it's gone, done. Money's gone, and it's going to be an argument.
Have you
And,
changed
you know,
the 50,000 for each district? Has that been changed, or the 40,000 for each district?
It was 25,000, and that's where the 250's coming from. It was 20 infrastructure.
But it's still per district?
No,
You got 40,000 for
Yep.
each district.
Yeah.
no.
And the 5,500 for
Activity.
11,000
Yep.
for your activity fund.
No, let's,
It's gonna go down.
Councillor Bush, and maybe your mic there, just, I think you might have hit it.
Yeah, the way it's gonna go from moving forward with the budget is that it'll be controlled by staff, it won't be controlled by council.
Still be on a district level, though?
No,
No, it'll be in a pool. And I'm just wondering, Jason, can we leave this infrastructure money out of the budget right now and have a special meeting of council to deal with this part of it?
if we
Because
leave it out,
We're beating the budget to death. We gotta get the budget done tonight. As far as I'm concerned, and probably the rest of the council here. You know, I don't wanna spend 2 hours on the infrastructure part of it. Why don't we just delete that right now and have a meeting of council later on and deal with just the infrastructure part of it?
well, are you saying delete it, take the money out? Because that's my recommendation is take it out, reduce the taxes. It's done.
Yeah.
Set some criteria for grants next year, decide what we're doing. Because that money is going to sit there, we don't have good criteria, and that's what was nailed on me last night, was you don't have good policy, and we violated the policies over the years of giving money out. As Jason suggested, groups were getting money from different pools, and they weren't supposed to. So we violated that. So we don't have a good policy in place, and are we going to be hit in September, October, November with organizations coming after us for money, which we don't have a policy in place, and we're going to be nailed to get something in place. And it's going to be rushed, not going to be fair, and here we overcharge people $250,000.
Why don't we just freeze
Yeah.
the funds in the infrastructure part of it right now?
Okay.
And we'll deal with it as a council and staff.
I mean, I
And
think
we all have to deal with that together.
Yeah, from a staff, from a staff perspective, yeah, that would be our recommendation, is to approve the budget tonight as is. That money is still there. There is a surplus of grant funds in an accrual on our statements, so this 200,000 is technically not spent yet. And then in the fall, staff had committed to doing a review of the grant system, and coming back to council with a plan and a structure for how we award grants and how it goes through the system. And then it's possible that we could change the structure at that time. That 200,000 is just a budgeted amount.
Well, we'll make new policy and change the structure of it, and I think that's the way to go. I don't wanna.
Okay, what's the intention with the activity then? You still want the 10,000 or 11,000 per district, controlled by the council for that district, the counselor for that district?
I think if we're gonna freeze this right now, we're not gonna deal with any part of whether it's infrastructure.
No, the
or
infrastructure and activity is different. The
I know
activity,
it's different, but
am
we're
I-
not gonna deal with any part of it.
yeah, am I to assume you're still looking to keep that 11,000 per district?
Well, from a staff perspective, I think the recommendation was that we were looking at taking, and it wasn't us, this was something that was raised by council, but we wanted to create a structure where grants would come in to one area, which would be the Department of Finance. It would be vetted by finance, and there would be one pool of money only that you could tap into. And it would funnel through finance and to council for approval. So when we say staff would have control over it, that doesn't mean that staff would decide who is getting what. Council would still decide that.
But if an
yes,
application goes into you, and the counselor for any district is unaware, and you say no to it, if the counselor is not putting it in, he or she is not aware that an organization in their area is asking for money. And then they're gonna find out months later that they didn't even hear back, or heard back that they,
That's a simple policy thing, so that we need policy that every single request for funding comes through council, whether it be approved by municipal staff or not.
That's right.
okay, so it's gonna come with a recommendation to say yes or no.
yeah, so staff wouldn't have the authority to say no. We, council, would create a system or a policy, if you will, of what the criteria and the checks and balances with perhaps a grant total limit, a criteria based on need, what have you. And once council sets that policy, then it would be the Department of Finance's responsibility to ensure that that policy is followed. If a group would come forward and apply for a grant and they didn't meet all the criteria or they weren't eligible for funding, then our recommendation would be that that organization not be awarded the money based on the following reasons. That would still come to council.
Well, we had policy before that if you were on the core community list, you didn't get money. Or if you got it, or it used to be called charitable grants, you didn't get other monies. And that was violated. And it wasn't violated by counselors all the time. Staff was still giving out money. So that's why I wanted grants to be simple. We had a list of who got money, counselors decide the rest. Fully, or
I
get
think,
rid of
Mr.
it.
Warden, to be fair with every district, you have to make policy to limited funding.
Well, then you're going back to the old system.
for your
Make
grant.
it simple.
No,
We
it's
don't
not
need-
going back to the old system at all, but you're limiting how much money an organization can take out of that pool, is what I'm saying. They can't drain the pool, this is what I'm looking for. You can't have somebody come in and look for $100,000 out of a $200,000 pool and expect that you're gonna get that, so that leaves everybody else, any other organization out in the cold.
Yeah, but that's not,
You have to have
Chairman, that's not done by staff. That's done by council. You make application, and I think where Jason is coming from, he was present at the meeting on June 19th, where we discussed the grants at length, where we stated that this was the process we were going to go with, that it was moved, that's where the motion I read, moved by Jason, seconded by James, myself, that staff would look at the grant applications, go through it, make sure that the proper process is followed, take the applications to council, and council decides. Now, if it's $50,000, $100,000, or $150,000, that's up to the 5 councilors that are here to decide whether or not you approve that grant or not. And as far as budgeted items, to me, a budget is only a guideline. If you do have a surplus at the end of the year, my gosh, good job. That's a fantastic piece of work
No,
that
I wouldn't say.
staff have done.
I wouldn't
Hey,
say-
listen, the budget is not something that, you got a guideline to go by. Now, I don't know how other people work, but if you budget to run your household $100,000 a year and you go 150, then you're in trouble. But if you spend 80, then you're $20,000 to the good and you can do something with that the following year. And I think that's what municipal government's all about.
Councillor Goyesh.
There's a guideline, you go by your guidelines, and if you go, if you save some money that year, then okay, you got a surplus. Then we could look and say, listen, taxpayers, we done a good, we act fiscally responsible. We have a chance right now to reduce your tax rate, and that's no problem. I look at budgets as guidelines. It doesn't mean you gotta spend the amount of money you budgeted for. It just means that you don't go above that amount.
Councillor Goyesh, the difference with your households, you can't decide at the beginning of the year that I'm going to add 100,000, 200, 300, 400,000 to my revenue.
But we're talking about accountability.
Hold it. You cannot do that.
Hold it.
What I'm saying is, we are doing that right now.
We're not.
Why don't we add another 500,000?
No,
And then
we're
at the
not.
end of the year, we got
We're
400,000.
talking about accountability of councillors, and I don't see where there's accountability. If I have a certain pool of money that I can give in my district, and I have no accountability. All I gotta do is take it to council, and there's not one councillor that's gonna vote against my request. And the same thing, if you bring yours, I don't know what it is. Nobody checks it. You're the individual that goes there in your district, your area. You will make an application, you sign it, you take it to council, and I don't know what the hell it's all about or whatever. And I don't dare refuse it, because I got the same thing going in my district. And that's the way it's done. I talk about accountability,
Why,
and that's what we're doing right here.
why don't
Being
you,
accountable for every grant we have.
why don't you know what my grant is about? It gets emailed to everybody. So why
All I
wouldn't
get
you
in
know?
the email is you got this association applied for $15,000
No.
approved by Brian. You don't give me the whole details of what it's for.
The actual
how it's done.
application gets put in the package for everybody.
Yeah, why can't you take it to council and let council decide and ask you questions?
Council
for
does
that grant?
decide. Is it going to be
I'm
any
telling you.
different? Is it going to be any different?
Yes, it is gonna be
If
different,
staff-
because we
well-
have our staff dealing with it, our staff that are trained, that are very responsible, they got the expertise, they can deal with this, they go by policy. We don't follow policy. I mentioned that the last time when we gave core funding. I brought that up also, and that wasn't staff, that was council. Policies are made by council, not by staff.
Mr. Chair, it appears you're all on the same page, starting with yourself, that you're very concerned about this large amount of money that
Put your mic on.
that you're giving out as grants, and that you want to improve on that. It sounds like you've made some preliminary steps. Now, the problem I guess you have is you're 5 months into the year, and probably you're not going to get it right the first time. I heard numbers of between 700,000 and $1 million that are allocated between tax exemptions and all the grant money you give out. So for you to look into that area is certainly very prudent, and you're, I think, just arguing about how it's going to be done. You're probably going to have a year where you feel your way around a little bit and make some errors, but it's nice to see everybody is concerned about this huge amount of money. Everybody heard about it in the public, and now you're telling us that I'm learning. I didn't realize that you've decided to improve on it, and you're going to have to find out what that amount is eventually, but in late August it's going to be tough to do it this year. But no, congratulations to all of you that you're looking at this huge pile of money, and you're going to make improvement on it.
Jason, no.
And in the fall, we'll deal with these different issues. that
Your
we have.
mic. But I'm going to leave Deputy Warden speak.
Thank you. Why we wouldn't approve the 200,000 for the budget tonight with regards to the infrastructure budget is beyond me. I mean, we're going to have people who are going to come for us requesting funding, and that's the way that it's always been, and that's the way that it should remain. And the way that we make decisions should change. So we're sitting here debating the $200,000, whether or not it should be in the budget, but that debate is based on how the grant system is going to work. So by saying that the $200,000 should be put in the budget, that is what I support. It should be there because we are going to have community groups that are going to come to us requesting funding. That should not change. What should change and what needs to change is the way that that money is given out. So we're arguing two different points on one issue. And the one issue is whether or not that $200,000 needs to be in the budget. And in my opinion, it does.
I guess what I do want to say, I mean, when Councillor Goyesh brings up the motion speaks of infrastructure and activity. not just infrastructure. So I don't know why you continue to say 200. It's 255,000. It speaks of both pools of money getting out of councillors' hands and into staff hands. That's what it does.
Sorry, the motion Mr. Geyer said does not include infrastructure and activity. The motion is to approve the budget.
No. The motion you read, I said.
The motion I read is that's an item of committee of the whole. But the motion I made in council here, committee of the whole, is that we approve the budget, and there are certain things in the budget that we're going to have to change as we go along in the fall. That's the motion I made, seconded by Mr. Councillor Boucher, that we approve the budget that's presented to us, and definitely we're going to have changes to be made in the fall. We have to look at our grant system. Definitely we have to look at that. We have to look at our heritage. That's simple motion.
We can't make changes to the budget after we approve it.
I'm not saying, I'm saying looking at.
You know, when it comes to
like
setting the tax rate.
Deputy Warden McLean says, the way we allocate and the way we do the grant system. I mean, it doesn't mean that because we budgeted $200,000, I'm saying, that we have to spend it.
We're not changing the budget, we're changing the way that we spend it.
The way we spend it,
Yeah.
that's all.
And we're not doing that tonight.
We're not here to do that.
Councillor Gayesh, if there's a grant that's going in your area that's recommended by staff, what would be any different with me saying yes or no to it than if you bring a grant of your $50,000 that you would have control of? I'm not going to say no to when you control 20%. Why am I going to say no when staff is bringing a recommendation to a group in your area, and I'm worried there's going to be a group in my area coming? If I am making a decision based on this little, I'm worried that somebody's going to say no to my area, as Jason says, it needs to be on the need, and we need to have the finances of those organizations, whether they need it or not. That's how we should be making our decisions. And I should be able to say no to a group in your area, or Councillor Boucher's, or Councillor Martel's, or Deputy Wardens, and not feel that you're going to say no to me just because I said no to you. And if that's how it's going to happen, we are not accountable. We are not making decisions based on good evidence.
It never happened before,
Mhm.
and I don't think it'll ever happen again. And I'm saying that what you have to do as a council is the recommendation we made at the June 19 meeting, that staff be in charge of looking after the grants. If they see that all the conditions are met, they have the policy before them. All they have to do is submit those applications to council, and we deal with it. The 5 councillors deal with those grants on an individual basis. Because I don't feel that individual, I'm not accountable for it. I can give it to any group in my area, and I don't think any councillor is going to refuse it. And I can give it not based on need, not based on the fact that they deserve it. I give it because it's my area, District 1.
But you should
And I'm
be the
saying
one.
there's more accountability if staff does it. That's what I'm saying.
No, we'll be able to blame staff instead of being accountable ourselves and taking the blame ourselves for giving it to groups that don't need it.
No, it comes to council, we're the final say.
Well, then it's
The
not
same as the
staff.
policies, we're the final say. Staff don't set policies, they don't set guidelines, council does. We direct the staff, or direct the CEO.
Question on the motion.
Actually, question on the motion.
Is there any more discussion on it?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Contrary minded, I'll be voting against it, and I want it recorded. Okay, moving on to item 5 is correspondence, and we have 3 items that require some action.
The first,
Your mic.
it's going to take me a while. The first, Mr. Chair, couldn't wait until September. They were asking for it, I believe, by the end of August. Pretty simple. It's a general agreement, a resolution of council to cost share subdivision streets for a 3-year period. They indicate that signing the outlined agreement doesn't commit the municipality to any specific projects. You'd have to forward those in the future. However, not having a signed agreement on file will prevent the municipality from requesting any subdivision paving under that program for the next 3 years. So I recommend that we recommend this to council. I think it's just a formality and it has to be done before. part of the committee of the whole report. Yeah, it'll be part of the committee of the whole report, yeah.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Goyesh, seconded by Councillor Boucher, am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay. On discussion, is everybody clear with what we're doing here? It's in your package. It needs some signatures. Everybody's clear with that? Everybody's okay? Councillor Goyesh?
Yes.
You're okay? Call for the question?
Question?
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carried. Moving on to item B.
That was simply for information purposes, Mr. Chair. I wasn't sure if everyone was aware that this correspondence had come in.
I think we were emailed that, right? Everybody got an email on that?
Did you? Okay, so everyone is aware of it.
I don't remember seeing that actually, maybe.
That email?
I
I think the minister was here and just mentioned to us.
I thought it was significant, and that's why I wanted to ensure. I hadn't observed that before, but I'm old and maybe I just forgot.
Yeah.
So anyway,
So they were let know who we were acting, and that's to do with getting an interim CAO. Okay. Moving on to item C.
Mr. Chair, when you graciously gave me the opportunity to work with you for a short while, you indicated that one of the priorities was recruiting for a CAO who was half decent. I think you meant that I wasn't, but I know I'm only joking. Anyway, I noted that you approved.
Don't forget this, Mr. CAO.
Oh, yeah, that's all right, that's all right. By the way, they tell me the camera adds a lot of weight, so those people who haven't seen me in a while, you know, it's the camera. But I noted that you approved the job description for the CAO, and when we went through it, I of course went through it when we were putting the ad. I noted the qualifications required. The qualifications were a postgraduate degree, plus 10 years experience, plus a designation.
10 or 7.
So I'm recommending that you change that to a university degree plus 7 years experience in a position with responsibilities that demonstrate expertise in the organizational functions of finance or personnel, human resources, admin, postgraduate degree or designation in a discipline which includes admin or finance would be an asset. The reason for that is that in the job description you approved, I think that it would pretty well commit you that looking for somebody with a postgraduate degree or a professional designation, that's going to limit the gene pool big time. I've just discussed it informally with Municipal Affairs, and they agreed that that was quite stringent. So just a minor change, but one that I think will make your job easier when it comes to recruiting. So I would ask you to and recommend to you that you change that portion of qualifications to the wording that I've submitted to you. Yep, and it'll have to go as part of the committee of the whole report. If you choose to do it, it would have to go to council tonight.
Which session did we approve that? Was that in the review? I don't remember approving that.
Yep.
As a regular, which council session?
Oh, gosh.
Does anybody remember? Do you
Early
remember that?
June?
It was probably the last one we had in June, I believe, around there, but I'm not 100%.
Well, that was committee of the whole, June, July 4th.
I'll move we accept the CAO's recommendation.
Thank you.
It's been moved and second. That's a recommendation on the first page of that, right?
Yep.
Do we want to even go that far? Plus 7 years experience? Everybody's okay with that? Okay.
It's a significant loosening of the, from what you had before,
What's there?
but I think it's reasonable. It's a senior post.
Okay. Okay, it's been moved and seconded on discussion. Questions called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carried. No items added to the agenda. into a 15-minute question period.
See, Richie Cotton at the back.
Just come up to the mic.
Okay, Richard Cotton, resident of Lewisdale. Just a couple of questions and maybe a comment to follow. Are you still following Robert's Rules of Order for conducting your business meetings? That's what it was years ago, but has it changed?
Supposedly.
Okay. Just a couple of suggestions. One of the reasons for the committee of the whole meeting, there was many, but one of the reasons it gave the warden a chance to speak to issues. Generally speaking, there's a reason why the deputy warden reads the committee of the whole report, because usually he chairs it. I think that's something you may want to look at, Brian. It gives you the opportunity to speak, because technically speaking, when you're sitting in the chair, you can't discuss the motion.
Give your opinion.
And I'm sure you want the opportunity to do that. If you're in a council session, you're chairing it, you actually have to step down and let your deputy do it before you can discuss it. So I think the meeting would go better, particularly when you obviously have a strong position on things. It'd be better to have somebody else chair. And besides, it's mandated by your committee of the whole, your Robert's Rules of Order anyway. I think it would go a lot easier. Just
I definitely need
recommendations.
training in that.
Okay.
Any more questions or concerns? We're going to go in camera, so we'll wait a few minutes. We'll go in camera. The item we have is a staff issue item. So we'll be going in camera for that. In our committee of the whole session, we have some motions out of the in camera. Didn't come on. Okay, Deputy Warden.
Okay, I may need a little bit of help with the wording on some of these, but I'll take a stab at it and we can make some corrections. But I move the council authorize the advertising, hiring of a temporary administrative position to fill a temporary vacant position.
It's been moved by Deputy Warden McLean that our CAO be authorized to
Advertise and hire a temporary administrative support position.
for a current vacancy. It's been seconded by Councillor Boucher on discussion. Question's been called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carried. Deputy Warden.
I move that the lead hand position at Richmond Arena be reinstated to full-time employment for the upcoming arena season, beginning September 2017 to April 2018. Am I missing anything there?
Okay, so what that's about is reinstating the lead hand position, I guess. It's not so much being moved to full-time. It will be full-time throughout the winter
Reinstating lead
season.
hand, yes.
So there's been a motion to reinstate the lead hand position at the Richmond Arena, effective till the end of March 31st, 2018. Any seconders? It's been seconded by Councillor Boucher. On discussion. Question's been called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carried. I guess that brings our committee of the whole session to an end. So we'll adjourn the meeting and start our next meeting at 9. That's it. Okay, we're going to call the special council session to order, and we will begin by the singing of O Canada. Or I guess we don't have the singing of O Canada. We'll begin with the roll call of councillors.
Councillor Goyesh.
Oh, your mic.
Okay. Councillor Goyesh. Councillor Martel. Warden Marshall.
Present.
Councillor Boucher. Deputy Warden McLean.
We have regrets from Councillor Martel. He's has some health issues, so he's unable to attend this evening. Moving on to item 3 on the agenda is the Committee of the Whole report. Deputy Warden.
Committee of the Whole report for the month of August 2017. The committee has held several meetings dedicated to reviewing our budget. The committee is recommending the approval of our statement of estimate and expenditures, the tax rate and area rates that result. I move that council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole and that municipal council give approval to the municipal estimates of revenues and expenditures for the year ending March 31st, 2018 in the amount of $13,744,481. And further move that whereas pursuant to the Municipal Act, the Municipal Council of the Municipality of Richmond estimates that sums amounting of $9,248,056 are required for the lawful purpose of the said municipality for the year ending March 31st, 2018, after crediting the probable revenue for all sources other than rates for the said year and making due allowance for the abatement and losses which may occur in the collection of the taxes and for taxes for the said year which may not be collectible or collected. Be it therefore resolved that Richmond Council hereby authorizes the levying and collection of a residential tax rate of 80 cents on each $100 of the assessed value of residential property assessed on the assessment roll, and a commercial rate of $2.10, which rates said council deems sufficient to raise the sums required to defray the expenditures of the said municipality for this year and any deficit from the preceding years. And be it further resolved that Richmond Council hereby imposes an additional percentage charge of 18% per annum on all rates and taxes remaining unpaid. And be it further resolved that Richmond Council hereby fixes the 30th day of September 2017 as the day on which the tax collector or treasurer may proceed to issue warrants for the collection of all rates and taxes then unpaid.
It's been moved by Deputy Warden. Seconded by Councillor Boucher. On discussion. I just have something to say. And I probably shouldn't, right? The number of $9,248,000, when I look at our budget, maybe our CFO, the resource tax is $13,000 and that's not in that. So just wondering, should we change that number? Farm and resource is not in there, so.
Is that resource that's subject to the 25 cents an acre or whatever it is now? Okay, so that's not a variable rate then, that 13 grand, yeah. So that, I guess that's the reason why it's not included in there. The province assesses forest property and also farm property at a fixed rate. Now, it's been some years since, so I don't know what those rates are. Do you want Jason to speak to it?
You can, so we don't need to put that in there. There's going to be no issue or
Yep.
worry. Okay.
Yep.
I noticed it in the.
Various, yeah, good stuff.
Okay. Any further discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Contrary minded? I want it recorded. Deputy Warden?
I move that council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole and that council accept the recommendation of the Director of Finance and that the following area rates be approved. St. Peter's Fire Department, 9 cents. West Bay Road Fire Department, 10 cents. Lordways Fire Department, 16 cents. Grand River Fire Department, 15 cents. Loch Lomond Fire Department, 12 cents. Lewisdale Fire Department, 10 cents. Framboise Horseshoe Fire Department, 15 cents. Isle Madame Fire Department, 11 cents. District 10 Fire Department, 15 cents. Lewisdale Sidewalks, 10 cents. District 2 Community Rate, 4 cents. District 4 Community Rate, 5 cents. St. Peter's Village Commission collect whatever rate they establish, conditional on them providing their rate to the municipality by July 31st, 2017.
It's been moved by Deputy Warden McLean concerning the fire rates and VSA rate. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Gayesh. On discussion.
Just one item, District 2 is actually the revised District 1. District
Actually, I think they're both in the same district. District 2 used to be your district, right? So is that just part of your district?
It's only part of my
Okay. And District 4 is part of District 2 now. So do you want the names changed?
Oh, no, I want just to
'Cause-
notify council that there is a change.
We were going to change that, right? Should we change that now?
I'm not sure what the rates refer to.
Beautification rates?
The motion that I
Beautification.
provided was the motion from last year.
Yeah.
Just as a reference. So, yeah, it's the old District 4 is District 2.
Yeah.
And,
District 2 is District 1.
But
It's not all of District 1.
well, that's the thing. We need to be clear on that it's still, it's still what used to be geographically the District 2, District 4.
community levies, then
The community levy there.
Okay. So do we want that changed, that amendment made?
Yep.
How would you prefer it? Just community levy?
District 2, 1 community levy and District 2 community levy, something like that.
Like Petit Le Gras is,
District
And
2 to
we'll put-
District,
We'll put Pays de Gras in brackets.
It doesn't include Irish.
And for District 2, what communities are affected?
well, what used to be District 4 is now District 2, and that's
West
West
Ayrshire?
Ayrshire.
Just West Ayrshire, it doesn't include.
So you're okay with that amendment? Okay, and you're okay? Second. Okay, further discussion? Question has been called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carried. Deputy Warden?
The committee reviewed correspondence from the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal. I move that council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole and that approval be given to a 3-year cost-sharing agreement to number 2018-018 for subdivision streets, which does not commit Richmond Council to undertaking any projects but will serve as a governing agreement for any potential future cost-shared work with the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
It's been moved by Deputy Warden. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Boucher. On discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carried. Deputy Warden?
The committee has also received a staff recommendation that the CAO job description be amended slightly. I move that council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole and that the section of the CAO job description titled Qualifications be amended to the following: a university degree plus 7 years' experience in a position with responsibilities that demonstrate expertise in the organizational functions of financial, personnel, human resources, administration, communication, and operations management. A postgraduate degree or designation in a discipline which includes administration or finance would be an asset.
Been moved by Deputy Warden and seconded by Councillor Boucher. On discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carried. Deputy Warden?
The committee considered a temporary vacancy in administrative support position. I move that council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole and authorize staff to advertise and hire a temporary administrative support position to fill a temporary vacancy.
It's been moved by Deputy Warden. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Boucher. On discussion? Question has been called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carried. Deputy Warden?
The committee considered an imminent reopening of the ice season at the Richmond Arena. I move that council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole and continue the lead hand position as a full-time position at the Richmond Arena for the remainder of the 2018 season with remuneration at the 2016-17 rate.
It's been moved by Deputy Warden and seconded by Councillor Boucher. On discussion? Question has been called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carried. Deputy Warden?
This concludes the Committee of the Whole report for the month of August 2017, and I move its adoption.
It's been moved by Deputy Warden and seconded by Councillor Boucher. On discussion? Question has been called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carried. That brings us to item 4, but we will have a question period if someone has any questions. People want to come up. No takers? motion
Mr.
to.
Chair, could I just commend council? You guys are doing all the heavy lifting. I know you don't hear me say that, but maybe the community needs to know that, what's going on. You've lost, some pretty heavy commercial assessment in the west end of our county. And you use some funds out of reserves in past years to keep your tax rate increase reasonable. This year, you've kept your tax rate the same without using any reserves. So, when people come to these meetings and suffer through all the questions and so on, there's a reason why you guys are doing this. It's to, come up. So I think it's important for the community to know. And if I could point out that, in my opinion, you received excellent financial advice and all kinds of that accounting stuff from the finance staff, Jason. So I apologize if I'm out of order, but you do have cameras here, and I think it's important for the community to know that. So thank you.
We just
We'd
want to,
certainly like to thank you, Mr. DeGoo, our CAO,
You mean you're letting me go?
to fill in a position that, well, we're looking for someone new.
Well, thank you.
We certainly appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. How did one of your colleagues put it? We looked for somebody good or even half decent, but we're coming to see you because those guys weren't available.
I guess I
Thank
just
you.
want to clarify something. The mill tax rate, that's been down now since 2014.
Yeah.
So,
Wow, good stuff.
anyway, meeting adjourned.